Talk with Joe and Cody. My name is Joe Skipper. I'm the owner of Skipper Realty Group, brokered by EXP here in Oregon. I'm with my buddy Cody Wilhelm with Residential Mortgage. How are you, Cody?
Doing great. How about you?
Good, man. We had one weekend without baseball and kind of didn't know what to do with ourselves a little bit, but we worked and pressure washed and did kind of the things that have been put off because of baseball.
Yeah. You were able to do a little bit of life outside of sports.
Yeah, and I actually learned that I really don't like it. Like I was needing some baseball. It's like I don't know what to do with myself. I had mentally planned to do baseball every week, and the wife told me that it was every other weekend now. So
look at that.
I didn't know what to do, and I had to actually work. So that was annoying that I had to actually pressure watch. But
right,
hey,
yeah,
the sacrifices we make.
I love it. I feel like we're constantly behind on our house projects of just maintenance, outside, everything.
Yeah.
Because it just grows so fast. It's like you get this sweet period of time, like wintertime, when nothing grows and you kind of get to take that break. And then spring hits and it's really exciting. And then we look around, we're like, we have so much to do. And so every little bit of free time is that. And usually by the end of summer, we're just kind of tapped out. So it's a nice little breather. Yeah. It's like this cycle of life.
I know. And Christina loves lists. And so it's like, I can't even feel good about it because you'll knock one thing off and then she's already added like 3 or 4.
Right.
Like, hey, if we get done with these, here's some proactive things we can do.
Right.
So yeah, I knocked off one today or one this weekend, but that's about it. So
there you go. Yeah, no, the list is nice because I have a really hard time focusing on what I should be doing. And I get sidetracked and I go to the things that I want to do. So the list is a good thing to come back to. But then I feel like every time I read through the list, I'm like, no, none of that looks like what I want to do right now. You
scroll through and you just can't pick one. You're like, they all suck.
I'm going to go do something else and wait till I get yelled at.
Oh man, that's the same problem with work too. It's like, there's just so much to do. It's like, pick your poison. So,
yes. Yeah. What are my most important things that I need to do? And hopefully I'm in the mood for that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we also had the Masters and I lost most of my bets. One, a Scotty Scheffler winning bet, but didn't cover all the bets.
Yeah. Well, who would have thought? I mean, Scotty he was charged up and ready to go, ready to have a kid. So.
I know. So I don't know, I didn't see the whole clip, but he was saying, and I don't know if this is a joke or not, he was saying on Saturday that if his wife had her baby, he would have dropped out of the Sunday.
Yeah, I heard that too.
So, and
I kind of believe him.
I was like, for how many million?
Right? 3.6, I
baby
think.
better be worth it.
Yeah. I know. Well, and I think she was still, from what I heard, she was still like a couple weeks out from her due date. So
yeah, okay.
It would have been unlikely,
but that's how he's so ballsy with predicting that he'd leave.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
he was hedging his bets.
Like, don't tempt me. I'll leave.
Oh man. Well, anyways, man, let's get to the market. What's going on? I know it's at least in our world, it's just seeing it kind of from the outside looking in on the rates and things. I know you do the deep dives into them, but it's not great. It doesn't seem to be that great as at least what we thought it would be.
Yeah, it definitely feels like there's just when we start to get good momentum, it gets taken right away. And there's reports about, jobs reports are higher, inflation's higher. So it just kind of seems to be every time we start to gain some ground on the interest rate side of things, it just gets washed away. And so, in theory, we should be seeing things come back down again because they've been going up. So we'll see where that goes, but it feels like, and from stuff that I'm reading, and I know we've talked about this before, like I try to stay up to date on everything, but I feel like a lot of the predictions that are out there, they're just predictions, I guess. That's really all they can do is assume what is going to happen. But it sounds like the market is slowly starting to price out rate drops this year. So I don't know if they've priced out all of them, because initially it was going to be like up to 4, maybe 6. And then it went down to 3. And now it's kind of like, we're not really sure what things are going to look like. So we just take what we've got. And I think like we've talked about before, it's just, there's no telling what's going to happen or when it's going to happen or anything. So kind of taking where things are at and hope, for timing's sake, you can get it at the best of the time. But I don't know that there is such a thing right now.
I know. Well, that's like why, things like the 2-1 buy down or 3-1 buy down, whatever you can do to
Mm-hmm.
kind of help the pain a little bit, because we're never going to be able to predict what the rates are going to do, but theoretically,
Right.
hopefully they go down and you kind of have that buy down rate or whatever it might be. Because what
Yeah.
I'm seeing is a lot of people are coming back into the market. I think the buyers and sellers, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, they seem to be slow to adjust to rates. You'll see,
Mm-hmm.
especially during COVID, it was like everything with COVID was a perfect world, not for buyers, but they still could afford it. So, it was kind
Yeah.
of and then once rates went up, buyers and sellers freeze when things happen, good or bad. It takes
Mm-hmm.
them time. It's not like an immediate, like, rates go to this. Rates went up, and it was like everyone was just like, I'm gonna hold back, like,
Yeah.
and so what we're seeing, I think, a little bit, at least coming into spring, is people kind of adjusting to the rates, getting used to hearing the number 6 and 7 when they think of
Mm-hmm.
mortgage rates versus being used to the 3 and 4, and so then
Yeah.
they start creeping back in when they can kind of feel like they can still afford it. It's not fun. They were trying to wait it out, trying to see all those things that the professionals are predicting, that all these rate
Uh-huh.
drops are going to happen. I think what we're seeing now is people are like, if I can get in, I got to get in, because
Yeah.
you just don't know, unfortunately, what's going to happen.
Yeah. I think you're right on there with it too. I think it's just everything is a little slow. I run into people fairly often that are understanding of where the interest rates are, but don't quite have the understanding of how much it impacts the monthly payment.
Mm-hmm.
They're
Yeah,
like, yeah, I understand that rates are higher than what they've been and everything, but I still want to check it out, and we'll go through the numbers and break it all down. And then
yeah,
it's like, oh man, I didn't realize that's why everybody is having a hard time with the rates,
for
because
sure.
yeah, payments are higher. But
Makes a difference.
I just wonder what's going to happen when we get back down to the, say, 4s and 5s, whenever that is. Like,
I know.
we're just gonna we're
It
not
could,
gonna have much rate talk anymore.
I know. Like,
Maybe we
we will
will. We'll
not be
still
able to talk
track it.
about anything. We don't have anything in common. We don't
Yeah.
have anything. We could
Right.
have to end this
Yeah.
show. Like,
Yeah. How are rates doing? Oh, they're
they're
just
good.
boring.
They're
They're
good.
there.
Oh, well, you do have a cool story. We were just talking about off air, about
Yeah.
your recent loan. So tell me a little bit about it and let everyone know.
Yes.
It is a unique
So this
scenario.
was something, yeah, this was something that I had never ran into, never heard of. And that's not anything like crazy. I don't know everything, but okay. So I'll back up a little bit. FHA has a rule that apparently has been around forever, but if you are on a well or water source and you are close to public water, they require that you get connected to the public water if it is a reasonable fee to do so. And their definition of reasonable fee is 3% of the appraised value. So I'd never heard of that before. But when this client got a water test and everything done, there was something notated on the well report that the public water was close by. Um, so once that was seen and discovered, they were like, well, we need to find out how much that's going to cost, because if it's less than 3%, then they are going to have to get connected to this. Which, you know, I guess there's some people out there that would prefer being on public water, but you also have to pay for that cost too,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah,
it was something that either the buyer or the seller was going to have to pay for. So we ended up reaching out and getting some bids. The appraiser had reached out and got some numbers, but we reached out and got some actual bids for what it would cost, rather than just kind of like because of the city, the public water, they give a fee for what their connection cost is, but then you still have to run the pipes and everything to the
for sure.
house and do all that work. So in this case, the fee ended up being higher than 3%, so they did not have to connect to it. But if they did, we were going to do an escrow holdback, which just means that they could do the work after the loan closes. It still has to be paid for through the transaction, but they can do the work afterwards and not have it hold things up. So we were kind of prepared either way, but
Yeah,
it just, there are times where certain things just are out, they're just unexpected, out of
yeah,
control. Something that I think probably the weird part too, or the part that I, had never really experienced with that, is most, like in our area here, because this was over at the Washington coast.
okay,
But in our area here in general, I feel like if you're on a well, most of the time, you're not really just like 30 feet away from public water. It's a little more rural, or it's, neighborhoods where there's a little bit more, the lots are a little bit bigger. So you're 100 feet back from what the road might be or something. So that's probably why I never really ran into it. But it's one of those that I will definitely keep in my brain now and pay attention to and be aware of.
For sure. Make sure all the wells are a good distance away.
Yes. You just,
yeah, that's crazy. I never had that happen either. So it's kind of fascinating, but it's something that, it could happen. So be aware of. But you were mentioning escrow holdback as well. And it's kind of more of the nitty gritty side of our industry. And I wouldn't say it's used a decent amount. It's not uncommon, but it is kind of a weird one. So can you kind of explain what escrow holdback is and what people might use it for?
Yeah. So most of the time it's going to be used for something that is like a big item health, safety, something, well, no, not health and safety. They want those things taken care of right away. But say there's a roof that needs to be replaced and it's the middle of winter and the roof just, no roofing contractor is going to want to get out there when it's just dumping rain. So you can do an escrow holdback, which just means that instead of preventing the loan from closing and the transaction from closing because the roof needs to be done, usually it is because an appraiser calls out this item. So they say, hey, the roof is not in good shape. We need to get a roof cert to verify how much life is left on this. Roofing contractor goes out there and says, this thing is done. It needs to be replaced right away. But it can't be done right away because of the weather or circumstances. Then between the buyer and the seller, however that's going to be paid for, it will be put in an escrow holdback account, which is it just means that the money is going to be deposited with the escrow company, third party. They're going to hold on to it. And then once the contractor can get out there and do the work, the escrow holdback fund pays the contractor to do the work. So it allows you to be able to do some of these things that otherwise maybe can't be done because of, random circumstances that prevent the work from being done. Because otherwise the work needs to be done prior to the loan closing. But again, if you're in a situation where there's kind of extenuating circumstances, or it doesn't necessarily always have to be something like crazy that has to be done, but it's not just going to be like, hey, we want to put new carpet and stuff in there. So we're going to have the seller pay for it. Just hold on to there. It's really more of like, this has to be done, but it can't be done right away. Sometimes also it can be done if say the seller doesn't have the money to be able to deposit into there prior to closing, but they can take the proceeds from the sale and they've agreed to do so. And that's the only way that it's going to work. So that's
what I was just going to say is like, it's a great way to, if you don't have the funds right off the bat or willing to do the repairs, but just don't have those funds till after close. And it kind of keeps the deal moving smoothly versus saying, well, now we have to wait till close, or now we have to wait 2 months. And so it's a really, really handy way to take care of issues that need to be done and still close on time and use a third party. So it's not like, oh, I'll give you the money after, it's like that, those handshake deals, it can be a neutral third party that handles that money. It kind of takes the stress off of everyone to say, hey, it'll get done. We have the money for it. It will be held in that account. So it's just a really handy tool that can be used.
Yeah. And one thing to keep in mind too, is typically you're going to need to get at least 2 bids for the work to be done. And they usually want to keep or collect 1 to 1.5 or 100 to 150% of the bid. So
just to have money there.
Just to have money left over, because if there is, say you're doing a roof and they quoted you $8,000 and they get into everything and they realize that we had to replace half of the roof. It's not just the shingles, but the structure part of the roof too. And now that bill just went up by an extra $1,000. If that homeowner doesn't have it, then, now somebody's left with a bill. So they usually want to collect 150% of what the bid is. And then if it comes in right at where it's expected to go, then that money gets refunded back. But
I see.
Usually 2 bids. If it's not done, if it's not called out by an appraiser, sometimes you can just use the bid itself. But to be safe, I usually just tell people 150% of the bid. and get at least 2 bids.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, I think it's a handy tool, and it's kind of in the nitty gritty stuff after inspection and appraisal and things like that. So it kind of gets it generally, I would say, knock on wood, generally you don't have the issue, as much, but it is an option. So people, rather than panic and say, okay, I don't have the funds to do this roof, or I don't have funds to do this siding, or whatever it may be, it's like escrow can kind of help with that, of being able to take some of your proceeds, especially as a seller, obviously, and say, just keep some of it and pay it off when I'm done with the house. So
yeah, that's the way to go.
That's cool, man. I was gonna say, I don't know if we've talked about it. We've talked about a lot of stuff, but I was on the FHA and the VA stuff. I think we'll do it next week. But just kind of the uniqueness. You always hear that the VA and FHA appraisals are, everyone is like, it's this doomsday type of thing. I personally have not had issues with them, with any appraisal, FHA or VA. But I think it's good. I think it'd be good to talk about maybe a little bit more in detail next week on kind of what is unique about it versus a conventional loan. What are they? Why are they different, and what do they care about? So yeah, I think it's a longer topic that probably people don't want to hear on today, but but maybe next week. And I don't know if we've talked about it. Have we talked about that?
I don't think we have, but it's yes, there's definitely a good 15 minutes worth that we could break down and just kind of go through, because it's there's differences, but I feel like the image of them is so much greater than the reality of what the actual differences are.
I agree. But there are differences. So it's good for people to know that it's not your traditional, appraisal. So, okay. Well, cool, man. Well, I hope you have a great week, rest of your week. And then we got baseball again this weekend. So we'll see how it goes. But
there you go.
No pressure washing for me.
No, you're off the hook. Just back to being a fan.
Exactly. Well, thank you, man. And again, until next week, we'll chat with you later.
Okay. That sounds good.